The grip came out of nowhere, rough fingers twisting the collar of her faded blue hoodie, yanking her forward so hard the breath left her lungs in a sharp, silent gasp, and in that frozen second beneath the bright midday sun of the school courtyard, everything people thought they knew about her was about to shatter. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength people carry when the world tries to break them, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Acts of kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Amani Brooks had learned early how to disappear in plain sight. She moved through the school halls like a shadow stretched thin by fluorescent lights, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes lowered not in shame but in strategy. Being seen had never brought her anything good. Her mother worked double shifts at a hospital across town, coming home exhausted but still smiling, reminding Amani every morning that dignity mattered even when the world tried to strip it away. Her father had left years ago, leaving behind an empty chair at the dinner table and a silence that grew louder as time passed. So Amani learned to carry herself quietly, carefully, as if making too much noise might invite trouble she could not afford. The courtyard at midday was usually loud and chaotic, students laughing, arguing, tossing backpacks onto benches as the sun warmed the concrete. That day, the sky was painfully blue, the kind of perfect afternoon that felt cruel when your chest was already tight with unease. Amani sat alone on the edge of a low wall, notebook balanced on her knees, sketching shapes that looked like wings but never quite took flight. Art was the one place she let herself breathe, the one place she could tell the truth without words. She did not notice the cluster of students moving closer until their shadows fell across her page, blotting out the light. They had been circling her for weeks, not always openly, sometimes just whispers behind hands, laughter that followed her down the hall, comments about her hair, her clothes, the way she spoke too softly. Their cruelty thrived in daylight because no one ever seemed to look directly at it. Teachers were busy, administrators distracted, and classmates learned quickly that survival sometimes meant silence. Amani felt their presence before she saw them, her stomach tightening, fingers pressing harder into the pencil until it snapped with a dull crack. The moment her collar was grabbed, time slowed into something thick and heavy. The fabric bunched painfully at her throat, the sudden closeness stealing her space, her air, her sense of safety. Gasps rippled through the courtyard, but no one moved. Phones came out, hands hovered uncertainly, and fear settled like dust. Amani's heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Memories flashed uninvited, of her mother warning her to keep her head down, of every time she had walked away, swallowed her anger, told herself endurance was strength. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the way the sun burned against her skin, or the laughter that cut too close, or the sharp realization that shrinking had never protected her. Beneath the fear was a deeper current, steady and unyielding, a resolve forged in quiet nights and long bus rides home. Amani had spent years being underestimated, mistaken for weak because she was gentle, because she was thoughtful, because she refused to become what hurt her. They did not know what she carried inside. Her response was not explosive or dramatic in the way people expect courage to look. It was controlled, precise, and rooted in self-respect. She straightened her spine, grounding herself, her movements deliberate as she reached up and removed the hand from her collar, not with panic but with authority. The gesture alone sent a ripple through the onlookers, a visible shift as shock replaced mockery. Amani did not shout or plead. She looked directly at the faces in front of her, eyes steady, voice calm enough to cut through the noise like glass. In that moment, the courtyard felt suspended between breaths. Teachers began to notice, drawn by the sudden hush, and students leaned in, uncertain whether to cheer or retreat. What shocked everyone was not just that Amani stood up for herself, but how she did it. There was no hatred in her expression, no trembling rage. There was clarity. She named what was happening for what it was, refusing to let it be minimized or laughed away. She reminded them, and everyone watching that touching someone without consent was violence, that humiliation was not humor, and that silence was not permission. The bullies faltered, bravado draining from their posture as accountability entered the space. Power, it turns out, is fragile when exposed to truth. A teacher finally stepped forward, voice sharp with authority, and administrators were called as the crowd parted. Whispers erupted, but the tone had changed. It was no longer about entertainment. It was about reckoning. Amani stood there, heart still racing, hands shaking just enough for her to notice, but she did not sit back down. She did not retreat. She held her ground. The hours that followed blurred into a haze of offices, paperwork, and hushed conversations. Amani expected to feel relief, but instead she felt raw, exposed, like a nerve stripped bare. She worried about retaliation, about being labeled difficult, about the consequences of refusing to stay quiet. When she finally made it home that afternoon, the sun still high in the sky, she sat at the kitchen table staring at the familiar cracks in the wall, wondering if she had done the right thing. Her mother came home earlier than usual that day, worry etched deep into her face after receiving a call from the school. Amani braced herself for disappointment, for warnings about being careful, about survival. Instead, her mother listened, eyes shining with unshed tears, and wrapped her in a hug that felt like armor. She told Amani how proud she was, not because she had fought back, but because she had spoken up, because she had valued herself enough to demand respect. In that quiet kitchen, bathed in afternoon light, something inside Amani softened and strengthened all at once. The next day at school felt different. Eyes followed her, but not all of them were unkind. Some held curiosity, others admiration, a few guilt. A girl she barely knew slipped a note into her locker thanking her for saying what others were too afraid to say. A teacher checked in, offering support resources and reassurance. Even the halls seemed less oppressive, as if the walls themselves had shifted. Amani realized that courage did not erase fear, but it changed its shape. It turned fear into momentum. Weeks passed, and the incident became something people whispered about less and less, but its impact lingered. Policies were discussed, assemblies held, conversations started that had been long overdue. Amani joined an art club that met during lunch, filling pages with images of strength and vulnerability intertwined. She spoke when she needed to, stayed quiet when she wanted to, no longer confusing silence with safety. Her presence grew, not louder, but fuller. What shocked everyone most, in the end, was not just that she stood up to her bullies, but that she did so without losing herself. She did not harden into bitterness or seek revenge. She chose boundaries, dignity, and truth. In a world that often demands pain in exchange for power, Amani showed another way. Just before we reach the ending, take a moment to comment below and share what strength means to you, or if you've ever had a moment where you chose courage over fear. On a warm afternoon near the end of the school year, Amani sat once again in the courtyard, sunlight spilling across the concrete, her sketchbook open to a new page. This time, the wings she drew were wide and unapologetic, stretching beyond the margins. Laughter echoed around her, but it no longer felt like a threat. It felt like life continuing, imperfect and bright. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the day settle into something manageable, something earned. If this story touched your heart, if Amani's journey moved you or reminded you of your own quiet strength, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your interaction helps stories of resilience and kindness reach others who may need them more than you know.